The NHO Show.
You got that pressure.
It's the NHO Show with myself, Storie.
I'm Colin.
And we have a really special guest with us, Callum.
Hey.
Callum, how do you say your last name?
Ng. Like
That's
there's
what I
an I
thought.
in front of it. Yeah.
I just didn't want to be a jerk and be like, whatever. No one can say my last name when they see it written, so I just kind of give up.
Storie.
It's Serres, but close. All right, cool. It's actually serre, which means greenhouse in French.
Oh, that's not bad.
We learn something new every day. Colin is just Mills, so
Yeah,
anyway.
It's simple.
Run of
Very
the mill.
simple. Colin Mills.
Callum, you want to introduce yourself to all of our
Yeah, of course.
out there? Or?
Yeah. So my hockey background is I do play-by-play for the Oshawa Generals. Yeah. And
That's
lifelong hockey fan. Grew up in Calgary.
So we have a real celebrity on the show.
We do. We actually, someone, yeah. We are basically minions to Callum and what he
That's a
says
reach.
today.
It's a huge reach.
No, we are not worthy. We are not worthy.
We're happy to have you. But
happy to have you. Thanks for joining us. So we're going to talk about a couple of different things that are going on around the NHL. Last time Colin and I chatted or argued, whichever one you want to go with. We left it on a jersey talk where I professed my hatred for the Minnesota Wild jerseys. And that brings us to, and Colin professed his love for their jerseys. So you're going to have to try to be the deciding point between the two of us.
Okay.
But one thing that I think is really interesting is that the NHL, they've started a contract for next season with Adidas, and to sort of aid the transition, they're getting rid of the third alternate jerseys, which is a little sad.
Is very interesting.
Is this league-wide?
League-wide. So we're going to lose out on 17 third jerseys. 17 jerseys are going to disappear for the 2017-2018 season, but will be back for the 18-19 season. So alternate jersey fans can cry for a season and then come back later.
That's bizarre.
But it aids the transition of, we'll see a little bit of a difference. We might see a different style of jersey.
I wonder, like, with third jerseys, do some teams just make them because they have to? Because, like, everyone else, like, if you don't necessarily have, like, the same, like some sort of classic crest to go to or something,
Right.
Do some teams just throw something out there?
You mean like the ones that say bolts or like sends down?
Absolutely.
I like the bolts ones.
Least
I don't actually really
favorite.
like the regular Lightning jerseys, but I do like the bolts.
The Flames had a jersey one season. It was the black jersey, and then it had the horse that was snorting fire. Do you remember that?
Yep.
So
Very
Flames
Inferno,
fans,
Calgary Inferno style.
will love that jersey. They love it. Like every Flames fan, diehard has one. But if you're an Oilers fan, that's the jersey that you absolutely revile. You hate that jersey. And then Flames fans likewise have, if you have that Oilers, do you remember that Oilers third jersey was like the steel oil and had like the drop?
Yep.
That one.
So if you're a Flames fan, you're like, that's the worst jersey ever. So I think it just gives other fans something to hate, something else to hate.
Another thing to hate.
Yeah.
So what third alternate jerseys really stand out as the ones that you love across the NHL?
It's a good question.
Well, Colorado's third jersey is better than their current jersey. I absolutely despise their normal jersey. Like, I haven't bought one in years because of it. But I like their the one they had, the Stadium Series or whatever, like the Triangle C.
Oh, yeah.
I hope they go to that.
I like that.
I don't get it.
I mean,
It looks like a
shout out to
Coors
the
Light.
Colorado Rockies and-
It looks like a Coors Light beer can to me. Like it looks like exactly like that Coors Light logo on the beer can.
Isn't it the Colorado flag or something?
Maybe.
That
sounds right. I think, like I said, it's a shout out to the Colorado Rockies too, like similar to what their jerseys used to be. Or I mean, the old hockey team, the Colorado Rockies, not the baseball team.
For me, it's that Oilers jersey.
Yeah.
Just growing up in Calgary.
I want when after the third jerseys come back, I think they should make every third jersey just be like the ugliest jersey in that team's history. Just for like we were talking about with New Jersey, now you hate the Christmas style. People love that one
I
just
can't.
because it's so ugly. It's an ugly Christmas sweater. Right?
Exactly. But you're wearing your ugly Christmas sweater all year long, and you can't do that. The only time it is actually okay to wear your ugly Christmas sweater is during the month of December, before December 25th. And then after that, it goes tucked away in your closet, and you never see it until the next December. Same thing. Minnesota Wilds jersey, the old Islanders, like the alternate Islanders jersey, same thing. It's your weird uncle's vintage Christmas that you're just kind of a little bit too young to get why it's cool.
Yeah.
And then you've got just these, it's Christmas all the time. All I think about when I think about Minnesota is Christmas. Like,
Is that a bad thing, though?
But no, but like, it's like.
Christmas is the best time of year.
It is, but not when it goes on all year long. Like, I actually don't think, like, in my mind, it says to me that Minnesota doesn't have like a spring or a summer or a fall.
You're just hating on the dream.
It's just always like, and it reminds me of those weird like Christmas, like those weird green mints that your grandma has in the.
You are going way too far with that.
No, this is just what I mean, and I like
You
the Wild. Like,
associate.
it's not like it's not even nothing is against the team. I need to get that straight, but it's like the jerseys just bring out so much anger.
I think there's a
Inside of
deeper
me.
issue here because of all that association you just had.
know.
There's something.
I don't know what it is,
Something
guys.
happened in Minnesota, like the spring of '82.
I'm trying to think if I've ever been. I'm trying to think if I've ever been to Minnesota, and I've maybe driven through it,
Okay.
but
It was
I've
just like
never.
a long, boring drive. Then
But,
you just-
but yeah, maybe I don't know. It's just like all I think about when I see their jerseys is just these like weird, gross mint, like those weird kind of sweet mint candies. I don't know, like the
this
like-
is
I know what you're
the
talking
strangest association.
Yeah.
this is how my brain thinks, you guys. This is how my brain thinks. Anyway, I'm sure I'm not alone in in feelings, deeper feelings that
Well, now
get conjured up.
I'm just googling third jerseys, and I'm just like scrolling them. Carolina had one that was kind of cool for a while. It was like that flag.
Yeah, like the hurricane
flew
flag.
across- Yeah, the hurricane flag, like gale force wind thing.
I do think ugly historic sweaters would sell. Even if it's just for one season. Bring back the fisherman for the Islanders.
Yeah.
With Brian Gerard. Bring back the Mighty Duck jumping out of the bottom of the jersey. I don't know what was happening there, but
The
Someone got really
the
creative.
Coyotes had one.
Yes.
Oh,
Oh,
Coyotes is
Remember
oh, that one is like
Back in the
so
day.
bad. That is
That's
it
so
is
good.
so good.
I think it's got half like a goalie mask.
it's
and
like
the
a
other-
Van Gogh.
It
It's
does.
beautiful.
You know what? It reminds me of that Simpsons episode where Homer
There we go.
gets
Here it
really
is.
high in the desert, and then he goes and finds that weird fox, and it.
He's tripping on the hot pepper or whatever.
Yeah, that one. So that's what that logo reminds me of.
Not familiar.
All right,
No,
well,
the Kings had that. The Kings had some ugly ones.
so you know what I really like? I like black jerseys a lot. I have to say I'm a big black jersey fan.
Well, that's the safe bet, right? When you have the third or alternate jersey, I feel like that's the safe bet. If you're a team that doesn't necessarily have like a deep marketing core somewhere,
Yeah.
then you just go black jersey and you throw like lettering down the front or something.
Yeah, I've seen like black and orange to me. I'm not a huge orange fan, but black and orange, that combo really.
Well, I like Philly
stands out to me.
because Philly's orange and they're different. Like what I don't like is how there's so many of the same color schemes throughout the league. There's so much blue, even that teams have blue that it doesn't like relate to their team at all. Pittsburgh had blue, Florida has blue now, or it did like a couple seasons ago. Leafs, there's so much blue and red in the league that I like when teams like Philly go orange. I like when Mini goes green, switch it up a bit. Like teal in San Jose.
Well, it's also based on. I mean, we're kind of forgetting. Like, it's also based on what's going to sell.
Yeah.
Oh
exactly.
yeah,
Not
right.
to forget that
right.
whole thing.
Because actually, jerseys are really just to make money.
Yeah,
We
that's that feels like that's just the reason they have them. Like,
Which
well,
is-
something else to sell.
Yeah, it's a third to sell, and also it's it's like if you're going down, if you're kind of playing locally a lot, and it's something interesting. Like if you're doing kind of a home and home kind of series or something like that, like Ottawa, Montreal, Ottawa, or something like that. It's like if you're and then you've got a Leafs game the day after, it's kind of something different to wear on the ice that gives viewers a little bit of a reprieve from the typical jersey
Yeah.
or the jersey they saw the night before.
Yep.
Well, okay. Well, we'll see what happens I'm very curious to see what happens in 2018, 2019 when the third alternate jersey comes back. I think that'll be kind of a really fun resurgence of art and interest and hopefully some better color choices.
And hopefully it's not a disaster like that the piping was with Reebok way back when. That's what surprised me when you first told me about the jerseys leaving, was that it is just a money grab. So I was surprised they were taking them away, because why not make extra revenue? But the fact that they're coming back is just kind of teasing fans, and I think 2018 will just be a huge sale.
Maybe there's a total supply chain thing here.
That's what it is, probably.
Yeah.
Because they're like, well, let's just get it right for a year.
Yeah.
Figure it out.
Yeah.
And you know what? Honestly, with all of the outdoor classic games and out of the winter classics and the Leafs bringing back this in the Centennial, the Leafs bringing back the St. Pat's jerseys, I think there's a little bit of jersey fatigue, to be honest. I mean, how many different jerseys have the Leafs had this season? 4 or 5 different.
Take it away, and then people will clamor for it.
Or just give us a chance to kind of get our jersey collection in order, and then come back to it. Because if you've got,
You only have so many Matthews jerseys, right?
well, yeah.
I saw so many Matthews jerseys at rinks, like in Toronto, like outdoor rinks.
Oh
In
yeah.
the New Year, like
Oh, yeah.
post Christmas.
Oh, yeah.
Every 8-year-old had a Matthews jersey.
Yeah.
It was awesome.
Yeah, if you don't have a Matthews, I was just in Lloydminster and there's Matthews jerseys and Marner jerseys all over the place.
Solid.
That's Alberta, Saskatchewan.
Support
and
the young guys.
Yeah,
That's a long
well,
way away.
Yeah, it's a very far ways away, but we had people who were diehard Leafs fans who were at our festival. It was crazy. It was anyway. Well, we'll see what happens in the 18-19 season of the. I challenge you both to draw a jersey or something.
Oh, my
Create a jersey.
I designed London Knights practice jersey way back when.
Nice.
But so I'm a little experienced. I'll submit my sketches.
You guys submit your sketches. We'll put them online. Listeners can vote.
For which team? Just any
Yeah,
team
Pick a
we're
team.
choosing?
Any team you want.
What about, why don't we
They
just
gotta give
both
us a team.
Why
so
don't we
that
both
can
just
compete.
Why don't we both just design the Minnesota Wild jersey?
Yes. Actually, yes. That is exactly okay. Challenge. There we go.
And we have to see whose story likes better.
Yeah, we
And
just
if-
have to beat like a bowl of candy Christmas.
You have to beat those weird, like
The green
off
mints,
the green
yes.
mints. Those like weird,
Yep.
literally mint green mints.
Okay.
You have to beat those.
That's what you're getting for Christmas. It's just a big
No,
bowl.
no, I don't want those. I don't want those ever. Okay, I don't want to talk about this anymore. Mostly because it's going to make me even more angry,
Moving on.
and I don't want to talk about green mints ever again. What I do want to talk about is the GM meetings. Speaking of
Oh, yeah, those
green,
happened.
yeah, those happened. Right. Speaking of greenery and green things, a certain GM hid behind a green plant in order to escape the media, which was probably like, if you had just walked by, there would have been a frenzy, but you could just ignore. Instead, you're gonna try to get ignored by drawing attention to yourself.
It just made himself a story in the end.
Yeah.
Just the best part. I feel like one of the more good-natured guys
Yeah.
to have that happen to.
Yeah.
I don't know.
Anyway, so the GMs happened. They came and they went, and they and nothing happened. Nothing happened, and you know why? Was because it was all about the breakout brainstorming sessions.
Which I feel is maybe a constructive use of time, no?
When have you ever been in a brainstorming session or a breakout session where anything constructive and where maybe you came up with the greatest ideas ever, but have they ever actually came to fruition?
Nothing. Yeah.
I'm curious to see what the bill was on that brainstorming session.
Yeah. I mean, I have a lot of really great ideas. I would happily go next year. I think.
You're probably get invited.
Yeah, I mean, okay. Batman, I would like to submit my formal request for an invite. I am really great at brainstorming. I can draw flowcharts. Those like brain. I don't even remember what they're
Mind
called.
maps?
Yeah, the mind maps. There we go. Let's make some mind maps, guys.
You know, it was kind of an interesting backlash probably to this brainstorming session was when Jakub Voracek kind of called out all the owners and GMs about not going to the Olympics because everyone probably thought that was going to be a huge discussion point, and turned out they didn't really touch on it too much. So.
And I don't think they're going to. They're just.
Yeah, they're still holding out. I mean, we've talked about this in the past, but.
And it's like, just give us an answer. Really.
Maybe
kind of over it.
Well, they had a brainstorming session, like.
Right, but they had a brainstorming session to talk about everything. Literally, Bettman was like, "Come to us some crazy ideas, whatever ideas you want, and let's talk through them. That'll be fun. Why not?
The NHL's trying to become more like Google and just creative space, like free-formed ideas.
They probably had an open workspace, some sharing of ideas. It was all on the cloud.
I'm still laughing because I hadn't actually seen the video yet. I'm still laughing at the video version of it carrying the plant.
Just like
they had a good time.
Yeah, they did.
And it's like, it's not like he's just like casually hiding behind a plant where he's like, he's just kind of like, peering out carefully. Okay, guys, is the coast clear? Okay. He literally picks up the plant and walks with it.
That's how you got to go with something
no one would notice a walking plant.
Well, yeah, but that's the way you got to go with something like that. If you're going to do something that kind of funny, sort of bold, you got to stone cold do it. Just walk through the lobby or wherever it was outside the plant.
Okay. So, so plants were part of the brainstorming sessions. Maybe they were looking for new ways to bring in plants into rinks.
To arenas?
Yeah. Like a lot of NFL stadiums are doing it where they're bringing in, trying to make green roofs. The Levi Stadium, the 49ers Stadium, has a full green roof that provides most of the food and like most of the vegetables for all of the food that they make inside their arena.
Are you serious?
Yeah, inside their stadium.
Oh,
it's amazing. They have one of the greenest stadiums in the NFL. It's a very cool place.
That's amazing.
So maybe the plant was actually just a secret way of saying we're trying to implement that kind of a focus in the ranks. I mean, I'd like to see more vegan food. Yeah. Levi Stadium has a vegan option at every food stall.
It would.
It's also San Francisco, right?
It's San Francisco.
Santa Clara.
Yeah.
Anyway, but
okay.
Okay. But yeah, I get it.
When
But
like even a hockey team, then you'll have vegan.
Sorry?
Said when San Francisco has a hockey team, then you'll have some vegan.
Yeah, I feel like I don't know what the vegan options are like in Nashville or something.
Actually,
the Preds game. Maybe there is. Maybe there's a whole scene.
You know what? They were
deep fried quinoa.
Yeah.
I give you 10 points for trying. A for effort, Colin. Deep fried quinoa.
Is that vegan? Yeah, it is.
Really
that totally is. Nailed it. That's perfect.
Yeah, you're welcome.
You just made the menu.
Deep fried quinoa.
Yeah.
All right.
Sorry, is that better?
What?
Deep fried kale.
Actually, fried kale or like a kale chips, which are basically fried kale, is delicious. Delicious.
We're getting a little off topic, I think.
Okay, well, fine. You know what?
I'll
put my kale away.
If the general managers would have done something at the GM meetings, maybe we would have something to talk about. Right now.
Maybe they would have talked about points.
Yeah.
And the point system. And Lou Lamoriello has said that he'd like to go back to the 2-point system where you don't get any points for a loss. I have a tendency to agree with him.
That is ice cold. Old school hockey, ice cold.
But you shouldn't get rewarded for losing. You should feel terrible that you lost. You should feel even more terrible that you lost a game. Like
you should lose points for losing.
There you go. Like those weird
like
games where you
system.
lose points for getting the wrong answer.
Right.
So
or exams where it's like don't answer it if you don't know because if you get it wrong you're gonna lose points.
Exactly. So give it make there a penalty for losing, and maybe it's like and the feeling is especially right now is because every team is on this playoff push and every game matters. They're like, well, at least we got a point. At least it's so Canadian.
Playing for the point.
Playing for the points, like, oh well, at least we got a point. That's just a Canadian vibe. I feel like Canadian feel.
I do feel like it does impact strategically the way you might orient in the third period or even earlier in the game.
Absolutely. You should be playing to win every time you set on that ice, not playing for a point.
Yeah.
And then if you're playing, and then if you're, if it's like 0 for a loss, then it's, 0 for a loss, and that's all you got. But we can debate that, and whether it goes back to a 2-point system anytime soon is probably unlikely. But Colin, I hear you have an interesting point system that you would like to propose.
I agree with Lou that you shouldn't reward losing one bit, because you lose integrity as a league that way. There's no other professional sport league that gives you a reward for losing. Obviously, the shootout's unavoidable these days because they want to have a winner and a loser. So I actually thought of this. It's funny that this is still an issue because I first wrote about this back in 2012, and that's a whole 5 years ago now. That was because parity's wanted in the league, and I think that's why they kind of like the 3-point system, because it makes teams more even. But like I said, you lose integrity. So I've thought of a way. If you think about it logically, before the 3-point system, there was only a set number of points that could be given out throughout the whole season. So 2 points max per game. So think of like a pie, right? You can only have this many points. With the 3-point system, there's all these extra points coming out now that aren't part of the original pie. So you're adding on slices here and there. My proposal is that you reward winning, like a regulation or OT win, the same 2 points, but you lessen the effect of a shootout, and you only give it 1 point for the win. So you have 2 points for a win, 1 point for a shootout win, and 0 points for a loss.
Okay. So, and then that would drive you in the shootout.
I think because I did the standings of what it would look like now, and I think it just gives you a better idea of what teams are actually like
winning, playing hockey
versus the bad teams, like the ones that are playing to lose, like we talked about. It doesn't make a huge difference in the standings, but for example, Pittsburgh would be below Columbus and New York right now, just by a couple points. But the big one is that St. Louis is currently 8th in the West, and in this new point system, they'd be bumped up to 5th. So it would have just a huge effect on playoff rankings too. But like I said, I think it just shows who the actual good teams are that are playing to win and that are winning more in regulation too, and overtime rather than relying on the shootout.
Oh yeah, so basically like in some form of hockey, whether it's the regulation or the 3-on-3 overtime, you're going to reward the teams that are winning.
Yes.
At that point of the game. So that would encourage teams to try to win at that point of the game.
Yes.
As opposed to potentially losing in the shootout when you would get no points.
Well, you get no points for a loss no matter what.
Yep.
But you don't want to get to a shootout because you get less points for a shootout win than just a regular win.
Oh, okay.
So it would probably eliminate more shootout games too, because no one wants to see a game decided in a shootout. But if it has to get at that point, it has to get at that point. But you don't feel as good about winning the shootout because you only get 1 point.
Okay, so again, totally throwing incentive on the game.
Absolutely. And I think that takes off the pressure of the goaltender when it comes to that shootout point, because there's nothing worse for a goaltender than to have to go to a shootout. And then it doesn't matter how good you've been all game. It really comes down to how good are you in the shootout.
Yeah.
And I think that's a completely unfair kind of strategy to take on your goaltender and pressure for your goaltender.
Ultimately, it's a skills competition, right? So you're only rewarding a point for a skills competition rather than the actual game.
Absolutely.
And I just think it makes a lot more sense. The only other thing that really makes sense is if you go to kind of like a baseball scenario where it's games back and that kind of idea.
Yeah.
But still, with the shootout, it just kind of makes things weird. But there's all talks about like 3 points for a win, 2 points for an overtime win. I think if you start instituting 3 points for a win, it's just going to, again, increase that pie of points, and there's just going to be, it's just more complicated than it needs to be, really.
Do you think, I wonder, like, what are I'd have to look it up, but the shootout record of teams. Do you think some teams mail it in the overtime period? Not that you can 3-on-3, but do you think some teams think they have better odds in the shootout, so they just try to get through the opening
Yeah,
period.
for sure.
Yeah.
Well, look at the Leafs. The Leafs are terrible in the shootout, right? So they're the ones probably trying to push hard not to get there. Where
Yeah.
there's some guys that are known to be shootout specialists, and I'm sure those teams feel a little better about making it to the shootout with those guys on their team.
That's very true. We actually, Colin, you and I talked about this a little while ago about actually creating a shootout specialist goalie. With all,
Wow.
yeah,
It's
this
like
was,
keep them on the bench and just throw them in there.
or just your backup is just
Yeah.
really that your
He's
backup
good at
goaltender,
breakaways, basically.
Yeah, is just really good at the shootout.
Yeah.
Knowing if you're a shootout team, knowing that you can put this guy in, and you're probably gonna win.
But ultimately, that really wouldn't affect things too much. Like, the amount of times you get to a shootout, and if it's worth it, like, you'd have to still be a really good goalie. But it's an interesting thought. The thing about you saying, Callum, about like teams trying to get to the shootout, teams don't really want to get to the shootout anyway because it already is worth less than a real win. Because when it comes down to tiebreaker, regulation wins are worth more. But it's still not, I don't think, punishment enough. And it's mostly just getting rid of the loser point because the shootout win's already kind of devalued. But that loser point just needs to go.
Fair.
Yeah, I think we can all agree that you shouldn't be rewarded for losing.
It's interesting how it had such a deep, like you're saying, Colin, it has such a deep impact on the standings. Like, not huge in some cases, but the St. Louis example, that it shoots them right up there.
I mean, Tampa Bay would be in front of Toronto right now.
Yeah.
It would definitely change the playoff picture, and especially when right now teams are basically looking for that single point. There aren't a ton of teams that the difference between a lot of the standings there are a few teams that are, it's a 10-point difference. So a lot of teams are just really looking for that single point to get to the playoffs and hopefully make it through at least the first round.
And any way to make 3-on-3 more exciting, if that's possible, would be amazing.
And
just go for it.
And the fact that a lot of these teams are playing each other and just both wanting to get a point, you know what I mean? Whereas it would make the standings a lot, like the game a lot more meaningful for those teams and down the stretch if there was a 2-point swing rather than just a 1-point swing. But.
Absolutely. All right, so playoffs are coming up. Just a really quick thought. Who do you got making the playoffs, both looking at it from a personal side and from an actual stats, we look at the real picture kind of side?
Like, who do I want to make the playoffs?
Yeah, sure. Or just, realistically want to make the playoffs because your team's not making the playoffs, Colin. I'm sorry.
Well, yeah.
I'm really sorry.
I like other teams for other reasons, too. But
Who's your team, Colin?
I'm an Avalanche fan.
There you go. Okay.
It's been awful.
He says it like how Leafs used to say that I'm a Leafs fan and shudder and go and hide back into the darkness.
Yeah, it's just pathetic. It's just angering more than anything. But that's a whole other story.
For another day. So Colin, who do you have making the playoffs, stats wise or also personal wise?
Let me look at these standings.
Or who do you not want to make the playoffs?
I really don't want Boston to make it. I think that's a pretty obvious thing for at least my people that know me.
I don't think any Canadian wants Boston to make the playoffs unless you live out east. Because the only reason why there's a lot of Boston fans out east because it's so close. But if you go any further east than Quebec, and so if you go to the Maritimes, so Maritimes aside, I don't think anybody in Canada wants the Bruins to make the playoffs.
Well, the Canucks hate them. Alberta's got to be indifferent.
Toronto hates them. Montreal
the
hates
Habs
them.
obviously hate them.
Yeah. Ottawa, I'm sure, hates them for whatever reason. We'll just say that they
throw
do.
them out there.
Yeah, why not? I'm sure they just want to be part of the cool kids club.
Realistically, in the East, I would like to see Boston out, the Islanders out, the Leafs in, and Tampa Bay in. But I think that it's going to be Boston in and Tampa Bay in, and the Leafs and Islanders out. So my gut says. The West is pretty much set. Like, the West isn't even that close of a race. There's just LA chasing St. Louis, but there's 5 points back. So
you kind of hope that, Calgary's on a tear.
Yeah, Calgary
has
made it, I think.
They're amazing.
Elliott has really found his footing. He's been amazing to watch.
He's seemed to be a good story there.
Compared to the beginning of the season.
Yeah, it's nice when a goalie figures himself out.
Yeah.
It's so
such a
funny
hard time.
too. It's never how you start, it's always how you finish. No one's going to remember the beginning of the year and how
Absolutely.
awful his numbers were, but
100%. So Callum, who do you
Well,
got?
Well, so the Flames 10 straight, that's great. They're going to probably make it. And then if the Oilers can kind of stay in a reasonable position there in the wild card, that's kind of interesting. You always like to see that rivalry happen so that they're up in there.
Absolutely. And Edmonton is such an inspiring team.
And they're so interesting
And they're just
and fun to
amazing.
watch.
They're a
to
good
watch.
story.
Yeah, they're
Yeah.
so fun to watch.
there's a lot of storylines you can follow with
Yeah.
Absolutely. My Leafs love wants me to really, really hope that they can that they can stay in and that they actually make it. Colin, I agree with you that it's at this point I kind of don't think realistically it's going to happen. You know who I don't want to make the playoffs, and this is not going to be a popular thought, is LA. LA is such a slow team.
Yeah, you don't like LA.
They are just so boring to watch. And when it comes down to playoff hockey, I feel like you need something fun and exciting, and you need speed.
They're
I
the
don't think you
epitome
can.
of playoff hockey.
Like, I
It's
just
defensive all the time.
exactly, and then it's just like they're skating through mud at all times. When you go and watch like the Leafs and how quick they are, or Oilers and how fast they are, it's like you're watching some of the fastest skaters in the league, and then you go and watch LA, and I'm just like, oh.
But it's like
Mercy.
I get the thing about speed, and I love that in this game. That's why we love this game, because it's happening so much faster than.
And that's
than
why we
most
love
pro
3-on-3 overtime,
Yeah.
because it's fast and it's like it's real and it's it's open and
Yeah.
there's space.
I get how essential it is. I get it. You can't you can't build a team today without it. But if you could just get the puck into the other end, like into the offensive zone,
Yeah.
it doesn't necessarily matter if you have speed, depending on like how you want to play. And I think LA has, in a way, somehow they're a bit out of the picture right now, but they've mastered
Better
that.
rough year.
Yeah. Like
Hope
if you
it's
can
our-
just get the puck down there, you can keep it, then you're good.
And how do you shut down speed? You hit them.
Yeah.
You literally just stand there and you become a wall.
And LA's a big team. I really like how LA plays. I mean, I'm a little more old school than you, I think, but totally respect defense, and maybe that's come from me watching Colorado for so many years and how awful they are at it. But defense wins championships, and that's what LA is. That's why they won it when they just snuck in. Like if they snuck in, they would still be a threat to win, even though they're not the same team. Like their top guys haven't been their top guys, but you never know. When come playoff time, like things change.
It's one of those things, and I kind of agree. If they sneak in, they'll be a serious contender, as in I fully believe they'll get to the finals.
And you talk about Boston, like Boston in 11. I don't think they were a super fast team.
Yeah.
Well, again, yeah, no, and when I,
100%.
they're mean and they're big, and they can just stand there and throw any player
Yeah, they were
down.
just
You have no
battering
chance.
the Canucks, and then it worked.
100%, it did.
I don't know.
It did.
Yeah. Even in 6 years, though, it has changed a lot. That speed is like the league seems way faster even now than it was 5 years ago. But when it comes to playoffs and stuff, I'm not so much interested as who gets in right now, but more in like matchups, in first round matchups, because that'll make or break the playoffs in my mind. If there's a good first round, it's so much more interesting than if it's like lopsided or two teams you don't care about playing. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
But I mean, it can always be interesting because during the lockout, when it was Toronto and Boston, Toronto snuck in there and that was a surprise to begin with. But that was a matchup that I think every Leafs fan was like, "Oh, we're gonna get creamed. There's no way." And we took them to 7 games.
That was a good series.
And
give
to
you that.
triple overtime. I mean, that's crazy.
But that's in
unheard
theory.
of.
That's in theory
So-
a good matchup.
Yeah.
Right,
You know
but
what I mean?
I think that was a matchup that no one expected to be good. and it was really good. So
Oh, yeah, I
those
see
are
what you
those are
mean,
the matchups that are really exciting. Is the ones that you think are just going to be a complete, walk, and it turns out that it actually is an incredibly fun and crazy series to be part of and to watch and to experience. So
Yeah,
those are my favorite kind of matchups.
Yeah.
The ones that you actually don't, when you look at, and you say, oh, there's no way. Okay, might as well just shut the TV off, and then 7 games later, you're crying when your team loses, or even a team you don't care about. Like I think
I
everyone
was wondering if you were going to get to that. The heartbreak of Game 7.
I entirely cried. That night, I entirely cried. My boyfriend at the time had to go to the wine rack because it was before 11.
That was a tough break.
And he went to the wine rack to get me a bottle of wine because it was the closest place I could get alcohol. And I didn't want to go to a bar crying.
You know, it's a good segment. Maybe next time, sharing some personal heartbreak stories, because I have a funny story about that night too, and then I have another funny story about my buddy when the Bruins lost to Chicago when it happened really quick in Game 6, and I think we can talk about some funny things with that. It'll be a little long if I said it now, but
I think everybody in the country in that series, that Bruins Leafs series, was like, oh man, I kind of feel sorry for Toronto.
Yeah, and I think
for the one time in your life.
And I think the Bruins have just instilled so much heartbreak in Canadians.
Yeah.
Really, like they are just not welcome here. I've said it. Dear Bruins, Canada does not welcome you here. We welcome everybody except for you because you broke our hearts in Vancouver. You've broken our hearts in Montreal. You've broken our hearts in Toronto, and we're just kind of over it. We need to take a timeout in our friendship. Except I love your accents in Boston, so you can always come. Everyone from Boston can come, but the Bruins can just stay south of the border.
That's kind of the point, though. Like, would you rather see, as it stands right now, it looks like Montreal would be playing the Islanders. Oh, wait, am I doing this wrong? Yeah, never mind. Washington would be playing the Islanders, but there's potential that it could be Montreal versus Toronto, or Montreal versus Boston and Ottawa versus Toronto. Wouldn't you rather see that than like Montreal versus Islanders and Ottawa versus Boston? You know, it doesn't have the same oomph to it.
Absolutely.
So that's what I look forward to. Or like Calgary versus Edmonton's a possibility too. That would be unreal.
That would be amazing.
You always want, there's always that series or two series where you're like, eh.
Yeah, because
then 100%.
I'm watching it. I'm watching every second of the playoffs. But sometimes you're like, maybe I'll just grab a drink.
Yeah.
I'll be right back.
Yeah, you're like, I'm kind of watching, but I'm also on Facebook.
I should do my laundry.
Yeah.
I'll do my laundry and then I'll come back.
Yeah, it's kind of on in the background. You're doing everything else, whatever else. It's there. And then there are those series that you just can't help but cling to your couch and jump up and down and go get a little wild.
I think that's the biggest one I want to see, I think, is Calgary Edmonton. I would love that.
I think, you know what, and I think, honestly, Canada has fallen in love with that matchup and fallen in love with both of those teams this season, and it'll be crossing our fingers. That'll be the one to watch in the playoffs. All right, so playoffs are coming. We all know that. But teams are still rebuilding, changing, even though trade deadline has come and gone. There's still opportunities to sign college players.
Yeah, so there's been a few signings just in the last 24 hours. Pittsburgh got a highly touted forward, and his last name's Aston Reese. I don't know anything about these guys. I don't watch any NCAA, unfortunately. But and it looks like Dallas is landing a defenseman that was out there too. So obviously Dallas is in the playoff picture, but it's just funny. A lot of these times come the end of the year is when the rich just get richer. So Chicago's been rumored in a lot of college guys the last couple of years. New York got Kevin Hayes, for example. So none of these guys are really like world beaters, but Danny DeKeyser was one. I'm pretty sure Torrey Krug was one. Tyler Bozak, obviously, for the Leafs fans. There's solid guys that can make a difference, and it's funny that this year is kind of they fly under the radar when it comes to player acquisition, and this is when these guys get signed. So this is just another little interesting point of the year before playoffs hit, where teams can kind of load up their rosters. So.
Very cool. So, and then Callum, I mean, you work with the Oshawa Generals, and so you get to see a couple of the kids who are draft eligible. What are your thoughts on this year's draft class compared to last year's?
I think if you looked at it, it's obviously not as strong this year. From just speaking about the OHL in particular, as it relates to all the other leagues, all the other places where junior players play. But again, it's never. For me, it's never about the top 30 or the top 60 or even the top 100. I always wonder like what's going through general managers' minds and scouts' minds when they're looking at the, picks 100 to 200 and beyond. Like that's where, for me, because I see a lot of players who will go later rounds of the draft, and I see how they've developed, and for me, that's where the real opportunity is. It seems now because most of the other players are spoken for. You kind of know where they're going to land, at least in the first couple of rounds.
Yeah.
So.
Especially in these relatively weaker drafts. For those who can't see, I just did the quotes.
Air quotes.
But that's where teams can really shine because, like you said, like there's tiers. In every draft, there's tiers, and this draft doesn't seem like the top tier is as high as the last couple, maybe. But there just seems like in the weaker drafts that there's just a big group of guys in the middle. And if teams can really separate the good ones from the bad ones in that middle group, that's where they can really shine. And there's still obviously going to be some solid NHLers coming out of this draft. So it's not like it's just a huge wash. So it's still definitely worth watching and paying attention to. But that it's almost more interesting to me because it's not as strong as a draft. It's not as obvious. So I think this is where the scouts really make their money.
Yeah, there are the players who are obviously like Owen Tippett in Mississauga can score from anywhere, just great player, and so those are the obvious players. But there's a player in Oshawa named Jack Studnicka who's probably definitely a later round draft pick if he goes. But you kind of look if you see, for example, the Generals playing the Steelheads in a game, and you see the impact that Tippett is making on the game. And then the impact that Studnicka is making on the game, it's hard to discern really like who's being more valuable to their team on a game-to-game basis. Now, however that translates to the NHL, 3, 4, 5, 8 years from now, who knows? But that's interesting because there's not really that much difference between those guys, and they're like miles apart on the draft rankings.
Right.
So that's like to what Colin's saying, that's definitely where scouts like really, really earn their buck is discerning between those guys.
Absolutely. And I think it's important to note, too, that some of the greatest NHL players went, right at the bottom of their class of that year. And we've been really lucky the last couple of years that we've seen the Connor McDavids and the Mitch Marner and Austin Matthews, but and they've been really strong. But it will be interesting to see, and I think the kids who are maybe lesser ranked or when we don't have such a strong draft class, you get the guys who are going to work a whole lot harder than some of the top of their class because they know that they see who they're going to be playing with, and they see who's in the NHL now and who was just, who just got drafted, and they see Austin Matthews and they say, I have to work so hard this summer, and then they come back and they come in September or the September after, and they're just on fire, and they're completely different players. So. And
it's the step that you have to take is huge from even getting drafted to getting that entry level contract.
Yeah.
And then the step from that, like it's a long way. And I think that the guys who are maybe down the line a little bit, they respect that because, you've just getting drafted really doesn't necessarily mean anything unless they sign a deal and then go from there.
Right. Absolutely. So. The draft is coming. Combine is coming at the end of May, so that's kind of a really good sign. That's just a fun time because you get to see guys, kind of. it's a fun and interesting and fairly eye-opening day or a couple days to sort of really get your ducks in a row as far as who's going where and who's talking to who. And then the draft is going to come up at the end of June, and we'll have a whole new group of guys to talk about.
We should road trip to that draft.
F100%.
Where is it?
Chicago.
The Combine's in Buffalo, and then the draft is in Chicago.
That would be a really good excuse to go to Chicago if I always want to go, but I think I've got a bachelor party that weekend, so.
You can
Move it to Chicago.
Yeah, there we go. I was about to say that. I was like, Chicago's an amazing place. You should totally have a bachelor party in Chicago.
If it was up to me, we'd be there. I'll probably be watching no matter what. But you forgot to mention the NHL draft lottery is coming up as well, which is the most.
That's
exciting
right. That is. That's actually probably more exciting than the draft.
Which will be interesting,
television.
especially I think Las Vegas is going to be in there this year. If I don't know if they can win first overall, I'd have to check the rules, or if they're just guaranteed a pick and they're like third or something, I'd have to check. But
I think they are guaranteed a spot. I just can't remember what spot.
Yeah. It's good we did research. Yeah.
Vegas.
That would be a later. That's a whole other statistical.
We talk about Vegas probably on every podcast because we just shake our heads and go, "Oh, Vegas."
It's just interesting.
Vegas, Vegas, Vegas.
So it's the elephant in the room.
It is. It is. They have been plagued by so many issues from day one that we shall see.
I feel like 5 years from now we're going to be talking about like one of the most successful expansion franchises in like.
Well, yeah,
they did so well. What a great example of.
We doubted them, and they proved us wrong. And what a story! And they didn't paint their skates white.
Yeah, exactly.
Hello, Golden Seals. That documentary's out, by the way. Okay, so great chat. Sorry, I could go. There's a lot of actually. Speaking of Golden Seals, there's a lot of hockey movies that have just come out that I'm actually. Goon 2 has come out. Ice Guardians is out everywhere except for Canada, which I think is really insulting and rude. And because it came out about a week ago, and I've just been sitting there waiting and waiting and waiting and waiting. And then finally I saw that, it might come out in the summer in Canada.
Not familiar.
Ice Guardians is all about enforcers.
Oh, okay.
So it's
Like Goon?
Like Goon, but it's a documentary about enforcers.
Oh, it's a
like,
doc. Oh,
yeah.
That's a whole different thing. That's great.
Whole different thing about enforcers and their role.
What's it called?
Ice Guardians.
I just thought of a Disney movie when you said Ice Guardians.
Like Ice Age?
Yeah.
Or like Guardians of the Galaxy or something.
Yeah, something like that. I got
so
some
it's
sort of
basically
like Disney.
superhero skaters who play hockey.
It's a really bad title.
And it's also done by Pixar.
Yeah, not being familiar at all, I did not think like enforcers.
Oh, okay.
With that movie title. Is that actually what it's about?
Yeah, it's actually
okay.
about enforcers. It's got a couple of current NHLers. It's a couple of alumni in there, and just talking with their experiences being, like the Hammers in it. I think Tiger Williams is in it. Then you've got a couple of current players who are kind of the last of the enforcers, and their role and how their role has changed from 30 years ago to now.
Have you ever read Boy on Ice?
No, I haven't.
The book about Derek Bugard. Really good.
Sounds
very,
familiar.
very good.
Great. Wonderful.
Kind of sad. Very sad.
Okay. Great. Happy.
On that note.
On that note.
There?
Anyway, there are a lot of
Okay.
really exciting hockey movies to watch right now. I just watched Soul on Ice, which is all about black hockey players, and
cool.
they're an absolutely incredible documentary. Ice Guardians is out. Goon 2 is out.
Goon 2. Marketed in exactly how you would expect it to be marketed.
100%.
Hockey movie to Americans. Like, just put some fighting in there and people
And
will
it's
go.
so Canadian, and I love it.
Yeah.
I just love it. Yeah, I think that's it. And I think those are... Oh, and then the Golden Seals doc came out about a month ago, 3 weeks ago or so, on iTunes. So, anyway, go and get some hockey knowledge inside of you. Watch some documentaries. Callum, thank you. Callum, thank you for joining us.
Oh, you're welcome.
This was really fun.
Carl. It's been fun.
Yeah.
It's nice to have another perspective on here, so it's just not her and I shouting at each other.
You were a very good middle ground point. We did not yell at each other. We probably didn't agree with each other very much, but thank you, Colin,
I'm
for
still
being that midpoint.
brainstorming ideas for the Minnesota Wild jersey.
Right.
design
So I expect drawings on my desk by the end of the week, and we'll throw them up online. You guys can vote. I will vote, or I will just toss them out
Amazing.
and say.
Maybe by August I'll have it to you. By August.
Oh, okay, cool. All right, August. You have some time.
Okay.
Colin. Great. So this is the NHO Show. I'm Storie.
I'm Colin.
Thanks for listening.
And
Yeah. Okay, bye, guys. Thanks
Bye.
for listening. Bye. That was
And-
Callum.
see ya. This is Callum.
You can't see us, but we're pointing. Callum, Colin, Storie.